On August 28, 2026, at around 9:30 a.m. Indian time, a lunar eclipse will take place and it will be visible in many parts of the world, but it will not be visible from India. If we look at the planetary positions at that time, the Sun is at 10 degrees in Leo in the fourth pada of Magha Nakshatra. The Moon is at 10 degrees in Aquarius in the second pada of Shatabhisha Nakshatra. Shatabhisha is ruled by Rahu. Mars is at 16 degrees in Gemini in the fourth pada of Ardra Nakshatra, which is also ruled by Rahu. So the Sun is in Ketu's Nakshatra while the Moon and Mars are in Rahu's Nakshatras. Mercury is at 11 degrees in Leo in the fourth pada of Magha Nakshatra, which is ruled by Ketu. Jupiter is at 18 degrees in Cancer in Aslesha Nakshatra, which is ruled by Mercury. Jupiter is exalted at 5 degrees of Cancer. So at 18 degrees, it is no longer at its strongest exaltation point. Venus is at 25 degrees in Virgo in Chitra Nakshatra, which is ruled by Mars. Venus becomes debilitated at 27 degrees of Virgo, so Venus is very close to its debilitation point here. When we look at Venus from a world or political astrology perspective, Venus can represent diplomacy, relationships between countries, alliances, negotiations, peace efforts, and to some extent, wealth and financial matters. Since Venus is very close to debilitation, these areas may come under pressure. There is another interesting point here. Mars is at 16 degrees in Gemini and can influence Virgo through its fourth aspect. Venus is at 25 degrees in Virgo, so even though the aspect is not exact, Mars still has an influence on Venus with its fourth aspect. Saturn is also at 19 degrees in Pisces and is retrograde in Revati Nakshatra, which is ruled by Mercury. Saturn has its seventh aspect on Virgo, where Venus is placed. So both Mars and Saturn are influencing Venus. Because Venus is close to debilitation and is receiving the influence of Mars and Saturn, I feel diplomacy may become weaker during this period. Countries may become more direct in their communication. Instead of speaking diplomatically and trying to maintain relationships, leaders may start speaking more openly and aggressively. There could be more friction between countries, stronger statements, and less willingness to compromise. Rahu is at 5 degrees in Aquarius in Dhanistha Nakshatra, while Ketu is at 5 degrees in Leo in Magha Nakshatra. So Rahu is in Mars's Nakshatra and Ketu is in its own Magha Nakshatra. The Sun is also in Magha Nakshatra in Leo. Since Leo is the Sun's own sign, the Sun represents strong authority, leadership, and powerful rulers. But because the Sun is in Ketu's Nakshatra here, Ketu has an influence over the Sun. From a mundane astrology perspective, this could indicate pressure on powerful leaders, governments, or people in positions of authority. It does not necessarily mean something negative will happen to a particular leader, but it can indicate uncertainty, sudden changes, or a loss of control at the leadership level. Since this is a lunar eclipse, the moon is being influenced by Rahu. The moon represents the public, emotions, and the general mood of people. Rahu's influence on the moon can create confusion, fear, emotional reactions, and dissatisfaction among the public. People may react strongly to political or social events as this eclipse is occurring in the sign of Aquarius. Overall, when I look at all these combinations together, the negative side is quite clear. Venus is close to debilitation and is being influenced by both Mars and Saturn. Since Venus represents diplomacy and international relationships, diplomatic relations may become more difficult. Countries may speak more openly and aggressively, and there may be less patience for negotiation. But I don't think we should look at this eclipse as completely negative. An eclipse can also represent a major change, reset, or turning point. Sometimes an old system has to become weak before a new system can develop. One positive interpretation is that false diplomacy may start disappearing. Countries that have been maintaining relationships only on the surface may become more open about their real positions. Hidden tensions may come out into the open. Although this can initially create more friction, it can eventually lead to clearer and more honest relationships between countries. The influence of Ketu on the Sun can also be seen as a process of questioning old leadership patterns. Leaders and governments may be forced to look at their past decisions and make corrections. Things that were previously hidden may become more visible. Saturn's influence can also bring seriousness and accountability. Saturn usually forces people and systems to deal with reality. So, although there can be pressure in the short term, it can also push governments and institutions to become more practical and responsible. So, I would not say that this eclipse is purely negative. The short term effect may be more tension, stronger political statements, weaker diplomacy, and more friction between countries. But the positive side could be that hidden problems become visible, false relationships are exposed, and countries are forced to deal with reality. In simple terms, I would describe this eclipse as a period of pressure and transformation. It may first create tension and expose weaknesses, especially in diplomacy and leadership, but that same process can eventually help create a more realistic and transparent system. The important point is that an eclipse does not necessarily mean destruction. It can also indicate a major change in direction.